NFL draft fans, Colorado Buffalo fans, Denver Bronco fans, really anybody who has been paying attention to the Shrine Bowl over this past week. Welcome to the channel. Simulcasting this between both my Buffs and Broncos channel because it is the NFL draft. So I'm going to break it down for you guys. East destroys the West 25-0. And there are a ton of players who I think raised their draft stock. Yes, from this week, but also in this game. So, going to be giving an overall recap with a little bit of extra attention on our Colorado Buffaloes, who I think some of these guys could be really good fits on the Broncos, of course. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. If you had a chance to watch this game, let me know. Like and subscribe to whatever channel you're finding. We're on our way to world domination. And so hopefully I can find a box score here in a few minutes. Right now I couldn't find anything online, but let's just go ahead and dive right into it. The MVP of this game had to have been Jacorey Croskey-Merritt from Arizona. Now, what's really funny was that he only played one game for Arizona this year because of eligibility issues. So he was actually at New Mexico before that, and then Alabama State. But I think he had close to 100 all-purpose yards. He was shifty. He was breaking tackles. He looked elusive. This was a guy that came in here, I'm sure, with a UDFA grade and expectation. And throughout this week and with this performance today, just in live action, I mean, probably going to win the offensive MVP of this game and maybe driving his draft stock up to day 3 consideration. Maybe he gets a combine invite if he hasn't gotten one already, but he's somebody to keep your eye on for your team, seeing what they're doing day 3. If you need a running back, hey, this guy's pretty elusive. Now, a little bit older. Again, you see, man, this guy's been in college since freaking 2019. Hey, but if you need somebody as like a third back or something like that, why not? Why not? So Jacorey Croskey-Merritt absolutely showed out today. He should be incredibly proud. I'll get to some of our Buff players here in just a minute, but wanted to also shout out a guy who has been rising this week in practices, and he backed it up in today's game. Efton Chism was all over the place. Eastern Washington. He's got a neck beard. He's been comped. My friend, Bill Carroll, NFL scout, who has been on the show multiple times. Back in July, he was comping Efton Chism to Cooper Kupp, and man, he sure looked the part in live game action today. Looked extremely quick on his routes, elusive, sharp, fast, quick. I mean, he was catching balls downfield. He was making guys miss on punt returns. He was getting jet sweeps, although he was stopped on that 4th and 1 jet sweep. But he looked completely, like he's just a game-breaking wide receiver, man. A guy that can play a ton of slot. 269 snaps this year in the slot. 5'11", 200-pound senior. Right now, prior to this game, came in at 242, ranked on PFF's big board. So right within, the end of that 7th round. And I think he could be a small school gem. Maybe Cooper Kupp, maybe Puka Nacua, that type of thing. We'll have to see where he ends up. But Efton Chism might have raised his draft stock more than anybody from this game and from this week. He had a really fantastic week. Now, I'll hit on some of the Colorado players here quickly. Of course, and I need to get this out of the way. I mean, this was just an ugly game from a quarterback standpoint. Kyle McCord did not play in this game. Shedeur Sanders, again, was asked to sit out at the beginning of the week from all 3 of the top teams, the Titans, Browns, and Giants. And in his interview on the sideline in the game, he said, I'm going to be playing in here against the Cowboys pretty soon. To me, it sounds like, he's pretty confident he's going to be a New York Giant, which I think would be a lot of fun. We'll have to see what happens. But Shilo Sanders, this was, I think overall, it was a good performance for him, but it doesn't mean that there weren't, some difficult moments in this game as well. I think you've kind of seen both sides to Shiloh's game. I think he made a really good play on special teams. I think he had probably 4 or 5 different tackles. He had a really nice pass breakup against a receiver, might have been a tight end, over the middle, diving PBU from him. So it was good to see him solid in pass coverage. But he did have a couple missed tackles, one in which Jacorey Croskey-Merritt, Shilo just took a bad angle. I think underestimated his speed probably a little bit, but also looked good in punt protection as well on special teams. So I think Shilo had a good game, which is important. It was a bummer we didn't see Cameron Silmon-Craig out there. The word is that we were going to see him with the green dot, but didn't see him play at all. Jimmy Horn didn't play at all. Will Sheppard I had him in the thumbnail because at the beginning of the game, he just had a beautiful back shoulder fade for 20 yards, adjusting, to the ball, all that just showed that typical, X caliber wide receiver, in the NFL. Will Sheppard's that guy, 6'3", 205. I think he's bigger than that by now, and I would be thrilled if he is on my Denver Broncos now. LeJontay Wester, I thought that he had some really nice routes. The East probably, or the West probably would have scored some points if they had targeted these buff players a little bit more. But I think LeJontay Wester had one catch on a hitch route for 10 yards. So it was nice to see him, at least get some play. And again, just incredibly productive. I think he could have snuck into the draft last year, coming from FAU. For some reason, these statistics aren't loading, but yeah, 1,000-yard receiver in 2023 and almost had 1,000 yards and had a career high in touchdowns with Colorado. I think that Will Sheppard, Jimmy Horn, LeJontay Wester, all three of these guys were talked about from various publications of raising their stock this week, of being great performers. LeJontay Wester always open. Can he be a Tank Dell type of guy? I sure hope so. And I think any team that ends up getting these Colorado receivers, they're going to be getting steals. That's how I feel about it. Thought they played really, really well. And I think overall, slightly, I would put Shilo's game overall as maybe out of 10 or whatever. I give him 1 out of 10, may give him a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. Cause he did wrap up well when he got his hands on guys. Let's continue on to some other guys who really stood out. Johnny Walker, shout out to Arden Walker from Colorado, shouted him out on Twitter. Now they are not related. Johnny Walker is from Florida. Arden Walker, Edge from CU, is from Denver, Colorado. But Johnny Walker, I think he had multiple pressures. I think he had at least 2 sacks in today's game. He looked very dynamic. And an Edge probably on day 3 right now. That really could develop into a nice part-time player for an NFL team very, very early on in his career. He's got the size, 6'3", 255, just looked dynamic, menacing, all of that in today's game. It was great to see him play well. Now, playing next to Shilo was Shamari Simmons, and I think they had him mainly playing safety. And I was really impressed with his speed, physicality, tackling. I thought he moved really well. Shamari Simmons, a guy, kind of ranked within PFF's big board right now at 230, 6 foot, about 200 pounds or so. I just really liked how he moved out there. Coverage grade in college, 67.3. Again, ASU, one of the best stories in college football this year. Really solid in run defense. He had, let's see, how many tackles? They don't have tackles on here. What the heck? 17 missed tackles? But he got a run defense grade, 91.6. How do they not have tackles on here? PFF. What the hell? What is going on here, guys? But anyways, a guy that I think definitely looks draftable. Loved how he looked out there in today's game. He had a handful of tackles. Tonka Hemingway, shout out to my friend CU Andy. Follow him on Twitter as well. Part of the Guru Film Room as well. If you need access to all 22 film, links in the description. Our early bird, I think, is ending either today or tomorrow. So Y'all be sure to get yourself 20% off the membership. Thanks, Guru Film Room, for having me on. But Tonka Hemingway, he was fantastic. I think he had, I mean, I'm looking over my notes. I'm just writing Tonka Hemingway and then nothing else. What the heck? But I wrote his name like 3 times. I think he had a batted ball. He had a pressure. He might have had a sack as well, but he was somebody that was disruptive, getting into the offensive line, into the backfield quite a bit. A guy, again, kind of projected day 3, might have worked his way up into the top 200 after this week. A receiver that I think also looked very dynamic today, although he only had maybe a couple catches. Juice Wells, Antoine Wells Jr. from Ole Miss. I thought he looked very, very explosive in today's game. 6 foot, 205 pounds. And somebody, I think that also had a very good week of practice, 6 touchdowns on the year. Can play a little bit all over the place, lining out wide, out in the slot, all that. But in terms of the analytics or whatever, not the greatest, but I think him having a really good week for himself did himself some favors. And maybe he can work his way. I mean, PFF has him at 156. To me, that's a little rich, but what do I know? Let's continue to move on. From Ole Miss, interior defender JJ Pegues looked disruptive today as well. I think he also had a good week of practice, was considered a riser by multiple publications. He had an interception in today's game. I think it was off of the Minnesota quarterback. But speaking of which, the quarterback play, again, was awful. Cam Miller from North Dakota State looked, bad. He fumbled a snap from under center and lost it, as well as fumbled a snap out of shotgun and lost it. Looks short. Now, he can run the ball. I think he did have a couple rushing touchdowns, or a rushing touchdown and a rushing 2-point conversion. I'm trying to remember again. Can't find a box score on here. Hopefully there's one published later, but he did not look good. I don't think Brady Cook really did anything that blew me away. I don't know if he's a guy that's drafted. And some of the other guys they had, like Ethan Garbers from UCLA. They had the kid from Auburn. He looked like a much better runner than passer. And the kid from Minnesota looked bad as well. So these guys are probably ending up as camp arms, and maybe some of them end up on practice squads. But because Shedeur and McCord both sat out this game, along with I think 25 other players, to be frank, that initially were on the Shrine Bowl rosters. This game was a little ugly from the quarterback play perspective. A guy who is all over the place here that is not ranked on PFF's draft board, Kain Medranu, 6'3" linebacker out of UCLA, has a career missed tackle percentage of 20.7. That's something to just keep in mind. But he had a very good year this year, grading out in coverage, overall good defensive grade. 77 total tackles on the year and 3 sacks. So pretty versatile guy. I thought he looked really, really good today in both run defense and in pass coverage. I think he did himself some favors. And Shoutout, I believe he had a interception. It'd be Tyron Herring out of Delaware, previously at Dartmouth for his first couple years. He looked great, 6'2", 200. He might have worked his way up into being drafted. Again, you can't teach size. A 6'2" corner, that can cover. Yes, please. Has 5 career interceptions throughout his college career. I think he helped improve his stock this year as well. And I think that just about, I got a couple more guys. Jordan Phillips, this is a guy to keep an eye on, guys. As like a nose tackle, it can be a difficult position to find in the NFL. Jordan Phillips was the Pat Tillman practice player of the week for the Shrine Bowl, which actually means something because the practices is what means the most. The practices mean more than the game, to be quite frank. And he was menacing out there, and I thought he made a couple good plays today with some pressures in the backfield. I don't think he had a sack, but man, he was out there making noise, and you could see, his statistics from Maryland are pretty eye-popping, and at 6'3", 320 pounds, only a redshirt sophomore. So, he's got He's young. He's still got plenty of room to grow. Shocked to see him all the way down at 275. That's a UDFA rank, but he should find himself, I think, drafted after this week. The broadcast was talking a heck of a lot about Jordan Phillips throughout the night. And yeah, I mean, 0 sacks, but I mean, you're playing from the interior, 10 hurries. Yes, please. Good pass rush and run defense, great. Pass rush win rate, 10.5%. Run stop rate, 7.6%. Yeah, he's somebody that, hey, if my Denver Broncos don't draft anybody in the interior with their first few rounds, maybe you see Jordan Phillips being on their radar come day 3 if they're going more towards the offense throughout the first few picks of their draft. So Jordan Phillips did a great job. I think there might have been one more guy that maybe I just about covered it. I guess I covered all these guys. Oh, no. O'Donnell Fortune, DB, number 20 in the Shrine Bowl today. Pick 6 for the East team. He looked great. From South Carolina, 6'1", 185 pounds. Redshirt senior, a little bit older, but man, he looked great in today's game. 3 interceptions this year at South Carolina. You know, they had a really great defense and a guy who can play corner, plays a little bit of slot, but at pick 6, happy for him. Keep him on your day 3 radar. You know, ranked at 153, he might be able to work his way into maybe possibly being a top 100 pick, depending on how things go. Yeah, but O'Donnell Fortune absolutely crushed it. And those really are my standouts from the Senior Bowl, from the Senior Bowl week. We will, now move on towards paying attention to the Senior Bowl. So if you follow me over at David Talks Broncos, I will be giving a recap before the game happens on Saturday, talking about kind of who are the guys who have been rising, and maybe throughout. I did get my hands on some Senior Bowl practice film as well, so maybe I bust some of that open as well, which would be cool. But guys, I'll get to a few of your comments here. Again, hope you're having a wonderful evening. You know, it was so funny. I applied to a credential for this game and for the week, man. I was really hoping I would have been credentialed. I think it would have been a lot of fun to kind of be at the games. You know, Dallas is only a few hours away, so would have been really nice, but it just wasn't in the cards this year. So maybe next year. But man, I'll tell you what, I'll be honest, man. Without Shedeur and Kyle McCord playing in today's game, I was kind of glad that it all just kind of worked out to where I could watch it on TV. Because man, it was an ugly game, but what was cool was that you did see a lot of players, I think, really stand out and have their moments, raise their stock, even in the midst of just atrocious quarterback play. But yeah, did Jimmy or Cam play? No, Jimmy Horn did not play. My friend Mr. Michael, shout out to a Guru's chat, by the way, he brought up the idea that it's possible, that with Jimmy Horn's injury, I think it was the ankle or shoulder, I can't remember, but maybe he wasn't cleared for full contact yet. That could totally be the case and why he wouldn't have played. However, again, I can kind of show you this here. There were just a ton of guys who sat out the East-West Shrine Bowl. Like there was like 20, 25 guys who Shrine Bowl roster. Let me see here. So like, yeah, we can look at the West right here and you can see, I mean, just the West, they probably have 20, 25 guys that sat out. Like Jabbar Muhammad. Who are some other guys in here? Ricky White. I think he had a really good week of practice from UNLV. No doubt about it from what people were saying. So, I don't think Jay Higgins played either. Yeah, linebacker from Iowa. CJ West was out there. I didn't mention him. I thought that he looked pretty good. And then when you look at the East roster, there was just amount of guys. This DEP means departed. Like they didn't stick around for the game. So, there were a handful of guys. It wasn't just some of the Colorado players and uh, Kyle McCord. There was a handful of guys that, like Rocket Sanders, Raheem Sanders out of South Carolina, had a fantastic week, according to people. So, then they're like, well, there's no reason to play in the game. So Jimmy Horn was also talked about as a guy that raised his stock this week. So maybe he just decided, to sit it out. I'm not totally sure. This is all just speculation. But all that to say, there are a ton of dudes that sat out the game, even if they were practicing throughout the week. Maybe a few of those guys did interviews. I'm not sure if anybody else did outside of Sanders. But yeah, and then with Cam, I don't know why he didn't play, man. I was uh yeah, like I was just bummed about that. I was hoping to see him out there, man. Shirley, hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tony Lawrence, hey, I just want to say, was this the first time you've watched a pre-draft All-Star game? Because they all look like this. They all look like this. Yeah, QB play was horrible. We're used to Shedeur. Exactly. Right. Yeah. And Shilo made some great plays. Again, I think this was kind of a typical Shilo performance where, yeah, he had some plays that just kind of make you cringe a little bit. But overall, like he had way more impactful good plays than bad plays. And that's normally like how a Shilo game goes, right? But I think the most important thing was that I think he looked really good on special teams. If he is to carve a role out for himself in the NFL, I think it starts on special teams. So it was good to see him good in punt coverage as well as punt protection. Yeah, Shilo him, J Motion coming in here. You can't be perfect every play. No, you cannot. And again, some of those one-on-one drills, they don't do safeties very well that you see in practice. Very rarely are safeties covering wide receivers in press. Well, one-on-one. Um, but yeah, he had a great PBU. He had some other good tackles, good special teams. There was a couple plays where he had some bad angles, but it is what it is. Andy coming in here. Says Tonka Hemingway agenda is cooking. That's what I'm talking about, man. Andy's been on Tonka Hemingway, and yeah, I kind of seen as a day 3 guy, later day 3 guy, but very well could have raised his stock into what, the 5th, 4th, 3rd round, possibly. Once you kind of get to the 4th round, your guess is as good as mine. I feel like it's just kind of all over the place from there. But Tonka Hemingway he looked great today. So yeah, don't give a damn. This is terrible. No, that PB was not PI. You sound like you watch flag football. Don't give a damn. Like, you can't do a little bit of hand fighting. You can't have a little bit of contact, man. Yeah, but get it off your chest. I understand, but damn, dude. Sometimes you got to face the facts that, he made some good plays in today's game. Shep looks solid, but the quarterback play really sold him. Thankfully, the practice film was there already. Yeah, totally. And same with LeJontay. I was like, man, maybe they would have scored again if they had thrown to some of these Colorado receivers. But who coached for who? I can't even remember, man. All I know is that the East was coached, I think, by the New York Giants defensive coordinator. A little concerning, right? And then maybe the East, I want to say, was either a Browns coach or a Titans coach. I can't remember. Yeah, let's see what else we got here. Let's see here. No, he was not. He was not holding the entire play. No, he came over and made that play, man. Some of you guys that are Buffs fans, I don't get y'all. It's like you got these agendas where you just want to say that you're right and see these guys fail, man. I don't understand. I just don't understand. What's wrong with y'all? Chris Paul, it makes sense. He sat out 2, locked for day 2, most likely. Man, yeah, it would have been nice to see him out there along with Jay Higgins, from Iowa. Wanted to see the linebacker play. But again, I thought that Kain Medranu from UCLA looked good today. Was all over the field. So, yeah, I think overall, like the Shrine stuff was awesome this week. And again, shout out to everybody who's provided really good coverage this week during the practices and all of that. It's been great to watch. And again, hopefully we can, from a Colorado perspective, we can see a couple guys get drafted here on day 3. I think that would be really, really exciting. And yeah, I think the last couple guys we had drafted were Laviska Shenault and Juwan Winfrey, who was drafted, I think, in the 6th round. It might have been 7th round, but it's been a while. We've had some UDFAs, carve out roles for themselves. Shout out to Nate Landman, who I think is a restricted free agent or unrestricted this year. It'll be interesting to see where he goes from the Atlanta Falcons. But we got the chance to have 3, 4, 5 guys drafted this year, I think, and that's really, really awesome. The most than we've had in a really long time. So, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Let's connect, or I will have a show out for Senior Bowl, covering that after that game concludes. I might have to catch the replay or something like that, depending on how my weekend goes. But yeah, catch me on David Talks Broncos if you want me to break that down. Otherwise, yeah, with Buff's channel, I try to keep all the stuff just Buffs related. So because we didn't have anybody in the Senior Bowl, I probably won't do anything over there. But overall, I think this was a plus week for Colorado, and this is where you start. Some people say, well, Travis and Shedeur, who cares about after that? But hey, if you're developing an NFL pipeline, first it starts with getting some guys, drafted, outside of those 2 guys. Even if it is day 3, that's a huge accomplishment to be drafted in the top 250, 257 or so. That's a tough thing to do, and we're going to have a handful of guys, I think, get their name called from the University of Colorado. So you guys have a wonderful night. I'll be back tomorrow. Go Broncos and